Hi everyone, I am Taha. Today I am going to be analyzing and talking to you all about anxiety regarding life and death in the Zeus story and the poem Because I Couldn't Stop for Death. So firstly, I'd like to tell you what I'm going to cover in this presentation. Firstly, I will define existentialism and its topics. Then I will tell you how my topic is related to my literary texts. And then I will reveal my thesis statement. And I'm going to do and comparative and contrastive analysis of anxiety regarding life and death. And actually, I'm going to focus more on contrasts because I'm going to talk about the differences. And then I'm going to wrap up my presentation. So firstly, what is existentialism right off the bat? Existentialism is a movement, is a trend related to philosophy and literature. It's about philosophy and literature. And it emerged and developed in the 19th century, and it was at its best in terms of popularity in the 20th century in France. And so who laid the foundations of this movement? Soren Kierkegaard is considered to be the founder and the father of this movement. And so, what is existentialism? What is it centered around? It is mostly based on human existence and individual existence. And along with that comes the terms like freedom of choice, associating meaningfulness with life, and making decisions, etc. So, existentialism mainly deals with them. So, existentialism actually answers such questions as: are we free? Do we have our freedom of choice? Is there a meaning of life? Is there a meaning in life? Are we responsible for making decisions, and etc. So the topics of existentialism are importance of the individual, importance of choice, anxiety regarding life and death, which is my topic, meaning and absurdity, authenticity and responsibility, social criticism, importance of personal relations, and lastly. So how is my topic related to my literary text? Actually, there's something common in both of these works, in the Zeus story and in the poem Because I Couldn't Stop for Death. The common thing is the theme of death. So while the theme of death is the same, there's also an anxiety. There's also anxiety levels that the characters have in these two works. So I am going to analyze the differences between those levels, the levels of anxieties towards death and the life in these two works. So what is my thesis statement? My thesis statement is even though this theme of death is present in both the Zeus story and Because I Couldn't Stop for Death, the way that both literary works depict anxiety regarding life and death is different in terms of meaningfulness of life, level of happiness in life, and the way that the characters die. So, as I said, the death theme is the same, and there are also anxiety levels that the characters have, but the level of anxieties that the characters have towards life and death shows variations depending on these. So I'm going to explain each of them one by one. So firstly, how does this first idea affect the level of anxieties of the characters? So firstly, the amount of meaning that the characters ascribe to life is drastically different in both works, which most certainly impacts the level of anxiety. Yeah. So the difference in the level of meanings that the characters find in life actually affects the way that they have an anxiety towards life or death. So, for example, when it comes to Jerry has always been through pain, and he has always been through agony. And to him, there's nothing in life that makes sense. Everything is absurd. So because of that, he has an anxiety towards life. But on the other hand, in the poem, Because I Couldn't Stop for That, the speaker attributes happiness and meaning to life in the carriage ride, even when he or she dies. So in here, yeah, the speaker. These are the lines that the speaker says as he is on the journey of death, and each of these lines actually resemble and represent a certain phase of his life. And for example, we pass the setting sun. It means that it represents the ending stages of final stages of his life. So these moments flashes before the speaker's eyes. So this means that the speaker has attributed a meaning to certain phases of his life. So each of these lines means there's a meaning for his life in each phase. However, in for Jerry, there's nothing like that. So he has an anxiety towards life because he thinks life is meaningless. But for the speaker in the poem, it's not the case. So the second thing that affects the anxiety is happiness level in life. There's also a huge gap between the level of happiness the characters experience throughout their lives, and this also, of course, affects the way that the characters develop anxiety towards life and death. So when we look at Jerry, we see that he's been through a lot of pain. He is lonely. He doesn't have a girlfriend, and he doesn't have many friends to talk to, and he is pushed away by the society into isolation. So he doesn't have much happiness in life. So that's why he has an anxiety towards life. He developed an anxiety towards life. However, the speaker, in because I couldn't stop for that, as I said here, sorry, yeah, as I said here, in the final stages of his life, the happy moments, the certain phases of his life actually flashes before his eyes. So this means that he actually had some happy fragments in his life. So he was happy. He had a happy life. So he doesn't have an anxiety towards life. And actually, he doesn't have an anxiety towards death because when death comes, he welcomes it. He doesn't run away from it. And I'm going to explain the next slide. Let's have a look at the third factor that can affect anxiety. Even the way that the characters die can play a huge role in determining whether they had an anxiety towards life or not. So for example, let's look at Jerry. Jerry commits suicide at the end of the play. He makes Peter pick up the knife from the floor, and then he pushes himself onto Peter, and then he makes Peter stab him. But actually, he kills himself, and he had planned it long before he met Peter. So, and we could say that he didn't love life, so he didn't like it. He found it absurd, meaningless. So that's why he developed an anxiety towards life. But he wasn't afraid to die. He was ready to die in any minute. So he didn't have an anxiety towards death. So he has an anxiety towards life, but not death, because he was ready to die all the way along. And on the other hand, when we look at the speaker in the poem, because I couldn't stop for that, we can say that when the death comes, the speaker welcomes death, and he doesn't run away from it. He doesn't try to get away from it. He welcomes it comfortably, very comfortably, and he waits for his time to die. So this means that the speaker doesn't have an anxiety towards death. He doesn't try to run away from it, and he actually doesn't have an anxiety towards life either, because, as I said, the happy moments of his life flashed before his eyes. So this means that he had some happy moments. He had an happy life, and he didn't end his life. So this means that he doesn't have an anxiety towards life or the death. So to conclude my presentation, despite the presence of death theme in both works, the way that anxiety about life and death that the characters develop shows variations depending on these factors. So yeah, even though there's a common theme death, there are differences in the way that the characters show anxieties towards life and death, and this level of differences depend on whether characters have found a meaning in life or attributed a meaning to life, or whether they had a happy life or whether they had happiness in life or not. And even the way that the characters die can determine it. So consequently, while Jerry has anxiety towards life but not death, in the zoo story, the speaker has an anxiety neither towards life nor death in Because I Couldn't Stop for Death. So thank you so much for listening to me. Have a nice day.